I do dislike the fact that the FaceTime box pops up, though.
It's so fucking annoying. Like once they, let's see, a year from now, when whatever, let's see, what California location will it be? Encino. This one actually should be. Okay, I'm trying to think. Maybe this could be the La Brea Tar Pits. I don't know. I feel like they used Tahoe too soon.
I don't. I mean, the names have never
Okay.
meant anything really to me once they got away from cats. So
Why did why why were cats more meaningful? Just because the familiarity with them? Familiarity. I cannot say that's the word I have a difficulty with.
just because I like cats better.
Cool. Okay. I like California. I like California, so I'm into the California names, but the cats were easier to remember. But I also think it's because they were not on an annual basis. It was the old way.
Yeah, I don't dislike California. It's just I like cats better. I like the naming using cats better.
I particularly like California. I don't think it's great for code names. I think the cats makes sense. I think I think before cats they used musical terminology for naming, because I remember there was Allegro and Rhapsody. Rhapsody was like the last one before they went to the big cats.
I vaguely remember this.
I don't remember it. I just read about it. No, I was going to say where I should have gone with this with California names is this one, since it's very unpolished. It should have been called Chino. They make fun of Chino in the OC. That was a show that I like to watch, and it was clever writing. And they made. I think the only reason the showrunner and creator of the show was from Rhode Island, so he went out. I think he went out to California for school, so he didn't really know much about California, but he knew that there was a prison in Chino. So Chino was the place where they disparaged the people of the Orange County disparaged Chino. So I'm continuing and saying this could have been Mac OS Chino.
I don't know that I've had a lot of. I don't necessarily disagree, but I was thinking through. I don't know that I've had a lot of problems with it actually, but I also haven't done near as much as I would normally do. That's not like mainline stuff.
To be fair, I'm rolling in like my problems with iOS into this as well, which is not anything anyone could have expected. I gave no context for that until just this moment.
That's fair. It's enough of the shared code base, I would assume, at this point.
Yeah. No, actually, I really like Tahoe, let me rephrase. I like a lot of the things that they were thinking about when they did Tahoe. There's certain things I don't like. I don't like the corners of Windows. I think that just those big old, and not all the corners are the same. I'm looking at, and it might be because, so like Audio Hijack may not be using Tahoe UI elements because the corners I have them right next to each other, and the corners, the radius that would make the rounded corner is different between the two apps, Notes and Audio Hijack.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're doing kind of their own implementation of the aesthetic. I actually,
or even just they haven't updated.
Yeah, I just went back to my Apple TV app and realized that it's broken with Apple or tvOS 26. Like if you get it to load, it's fine, but navigating settings on the current version is messed up because of the changes with tvOS and iOS and all of them. So I'm working through getting that update done. It didn't even occur to me to check yet, and it's just because that hasn't been my primary focus. It's kind of it's still very much a side project, even though I technically have it in the App Store. Because I haven't fleshed out the basic feature set that I would expect to really push it at all. And so I never even thought to double check yet like I did the primary app.
Would you say it's a hobby?
At best. Yes, I like the reference. For now.
Yeah, no, I just, pretty much everything that's not an iPhone is a hobby of some degree or another.
Well, it's just, I have very significant or very specific use cases for
Oh, I
it.
meant for Apple.
I know. What I'm saying, though, is
Okay,
like with
okay,
the
okay.
app, I have a very specific use case for it that I do need to get there. It's just the lowest priority on a number of priorities.
It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, for all intents and purposes, as much as I prefer the Mac, I use my iPhone more. It's in my pocket. So, I got some pre-flight items and some follow-up.
I added something to the pre-flight stuff because I think that might actually end up being the bulk of what we talk about.
I don't think I saw that.
A couple of small line items in between your two.
Okay, cool. Now I see it.
So you want to start with the follow-up maybe, and then we'll come back to this stuff?
Like the first bullet point or okay, yeah. I see what. First, I was thinking one thing, and now I understand why you mentioned this. Yes. Global warming. We talked about some global warming. So I wanted to say, because I've been corrected by a few people, some legitimate scientists, that not to say global warming, but climate change. And then I found out that climate change was a term that was used to basically try to market away from the idea of global warming and to make it less scary. Kind of like the litter bug. The concept of the litter bug was meant to make people feel like they're the ones who are destroying the environment with litter and not the all the large corporations and entities that are actually polluting the environment. I had a moment there.
Yeah, I follow. Like the whole straw thing. Well, I think the straws are a little different, but it's still similar. Like the end user using a straw isn't the problem.
Right. There's it's
or maybe
it's the end user. Yes, even altogether, like if you take all 8 billion people in the world, we're still not the large majority. We're not a large percentage of the polluters.
Right. I was going to say actually
direct polluters.
An even better example now, especially in current general modern technological age, water conservation. People harp on like flush the toilet less or do your part to conserve water at home. But if you look at the amount of water used for cooling purposes in like data centers, there's no comparison.
Right. So I did come across. So since the last show, I did come across a couple of things that I thought were interesting and that I wanted to share about global warming. It's still not looking good, but it's one day I suppose it'll probably be while we're still doing this podcast, but we'll probably be able to say that there are no glaciers advancing. But that's not today. I was reading about some glaciers because I think they're cool. I think it would be really fun to go hike on one, and I should probably do it before they go away. But the Hubbard Glacier in Alaska and the Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina are both advancing. And I came across this interesting thing where they were talking about in the last ice age, some, what's the word I'm looking for? Evidence of glaciation in the Appalachian Mountains, as far south as North Carolina. So a YouTube channel that I follow, this guy was looking for some, and they're not entirely sure. There's some what looks like evidence of glaciers in North Carolina, but he's through studies, it's probably more likely some cables that were used to haul. They would erect large towers and use cables to haul out things that were mined from the earth. Because it was a remote area, and so it's more than likely that the striations that are indicative of glaciers were actually probably caused by the steel cables. I don't know if I
that
described that well.
I mean, well enough to understand. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anyway, when I was watching this, this guy had talked about there was this idea that in the 1960s there was an idea that the world might be on the edge of the beginning of a new ice age, and I think some scientists were excited about it, but it turned out that it was there was no good data to back that up, and the cooling that was experienced on Earth in the latter half of the 20th century was caused by increased sulfate aerosols from industrial pollution. So what was happening was there were more glaciers advancing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, between the 50s and the 80s, and it turned out to be from pollutants in the air because it was blocking the aerosols were blocking the sun. And so when in a similar way, I think maybe more well known is how CFCs were destroying the ozone, and then we stopped using CFCs, and the ozone healed itself. I think it's almost, if it's not fully healed, it's almost fully healed or fully repaired. Well, a similar thing was happening with sulfate aerosols, and that pollution was preventing certain radiation from entering the Earth, or is bouncing off higher in the atmosphere, so it wasn't warming the Earth, and so there was a period of cooling that was occurring, but it was due to pollution. So choose your poison.
Do you happen to know the negative effects from those?
The sulfate aerosols? No, that's a good question. I don't.
Because it sounds like I'm poking fun at it, but I'm not. Like, legitimately, if we were to figure out the correct balance for incorporating more pollution higher up in the atmosphere to help offset some of the increases in temperatures, I'm sure people have asked this question. I mean, I can't be the first person to pose it, but you see where the train of thought's going.
Basically, yeah, a sunblock.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I'm sure there are good reasons not to, but that's the reason I asked the question.
Yeah, I don't know,
because I would expect it's better. Like, just thinking about the realm of possibility of things that have been discussed or at least brought to the table or brainstormed in some way. Like, I would expect erecting some type of man-made shield was discussed back when there was concern about loss of the ozone layer anyway, and I'm sure those discussions continued even with advances in being able to measure its rate of healing, I think is, I guess, the best way to put it. So like, I'm certain that this question has been posed in some way and in some fashion. It's just an interesting thing to think about if we could strike the right balance between intentional pollution and not destroying whatever it is that that pollution is certainly detrimental to.
Yeah. So just a quick look on what health impact that sulfate aerosols can have would be respiratory issues because you're breathing them in. People and animals are breathing them in, and so you end up with reduced lung function, worsened asthma symptoms, increased risk of emergency room visits or hospitalization for people with chronic heart or lung diseases. So, not a good trade-off. But
well, I mean, if we already have that with COVID, I can take your pick.
Well, I think the better solution is a different.
I agree. It's just really funny
okay.
that like, if you want to gamble with everybody's lives and you want to destroy everything you can, like the current administration, like, fuck it, let's just add some pollutants back in and at least get a net positive out of it. Like, that's kind of where the poke was going.
It kind of makes me think that if we did that, we would end up like Matthew McConaughey's character from Interstellar at the beginning of the movie, with all the respiratory issues they were having.
Yeah,
his son his son grown up at the beginning of the movie.
The first thing that I thought of was the second Highlander movie.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, I didn't realize.
We've talked about this.
I forgot about it, but yeah,
it's on my homework list. So, yeah, no, I hope. kind of hope that fusion. I hope that fusion is the big energy changer. But see, thinking about last week and the $10 trillion that the United States spent on fighting the Cold War. I mean, there's so much to be gained, like so much to be gained in the same way. I don't know why we're as a species, the those who make it to the top in power are bent on war and destruction.
Because it feeds profits.
Well, I mean, there are profits to be had with alternative energy.
Not nearly on the same scale, though. I mean, there's a reason that the same patterns tend to be the things that are,
it's true,
chosen by
you're right,
those in power. And we know unequivocally that green energy is not as profitable as non-green energy.
I was hoping, I guess. So the other thing I thought about as we were saying, it's not in the notes, but planet Earth has achieved rings. We are now a planet. We are now like Saturn and Uranus. We have rings.
Yeah, I saw this on social media as well. Yep. All the junk we've shot into space.
All the satellites.
We have also acquired another moon temporarily.
Yeah, I have qualms with how this was put. I'd like to see how maybe somebody from NASA that's qualified to say this, would they say it's a moon because it doesn't revolve around the Earth? So it's not. I mean, it's moving along in line with the Earth.
I saw a blurb saying that NASA confirmed until 2068 or something.
I think they're just trying. I just think they're trying to go for popularity.
Well, I can't dispute that, but
they're trying to keep their budget.
Yes, yeah.
Not wrongly, but what? Only 25% of NASA's budget is for the good of people. The rest of it was for defense. We didn't go to the moon for exploration. We went to the moon because the Soviets put Sputnik into space.
Yeah. I had somewhere, I still have it, I know, but I have a coffee table book that's specifically devoted to the Soviet space program.
The space race?
Yep.
Oh, or just the
Soviets. The Soviet program specifically in the context of their
the space race.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was fascinating to flip through and read.
They always tell that joke how much money the United States spent on developing a pen to write in space, and then the Soviets just used a pencil.
Yep. That was in the book, actually, too.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, you know how there was a whole thing on social media about what's your Roman Empire? Do you recall this?
I remember all the stuff about men thinking about the Roman Empire. I don't remember.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. See,
the way you phrased it, I was just trying to figure out if it was like what would be your thing that you think of, like the.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say that I think that well above the Roman Empire, I would put World War II and the Cold War.
Oh sure.
I hardly ever think about the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I will answer if somebody asks me that question. I will answer all the time because of the social media stuff. But yeah, I rarely. If I watch something that has references to Rome, I will think about the Roman Empire.
I mean, the only time I think about the Roman Empire is maybe March 14th, 15th.
Yeah, I do typically at least remind myself of the Ides of March.
But other months have Ides as well.
Yeah, but they're not as important.
No, they're not. They're certainly not. I didn't even know that until this year. But to me, the whole point of the Ides of March, remembering the Ides of March, is there's a few good jokes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like that's all I have to say about that.
Well, then let's
go to the next one.
Yeah, let's create a callback from how the episode started, because it started with some discussion about Apple.
Oh, but see, I have another thing.
Oh, I missed the other thing. Sorry.
Okay, so I don't remember why I put this in here. Did we talk about? Maybe no. Okay, yeah, this was under global warming because I was going to say the oldest living. I now cannot remember why. I cannot remember why I put this in here, but I'm going to talk about it anyway
Well,
because I find it interesting.
So the last episode we did talk about the location of the oldest living tree not being
Okay.
disclosed.
Yes. Okay. So I learned. I happened to learn a little more about that in between then and now. So the oldest. So it has to be. There's some qualifications necessary here, but the oldest known individual tree in the world might be a Great Basin bristlecone pine, or Pinus longeva. The one that has been identified as the oldest living one is called Methuselah. It's located in the White Mountains of California's Inyo National Forest. Its exact location is a secret to keep people from vandalizing it. But what's interesting about it is at Inyo National Forest, there's a trail called the Methuselah Tree Trail, something with the name Methuselah in it, and the trail actually goes right by the tree, or in proximity of the tree that you can see it, but it's not identifiable. Nobody knows. Somebody said. What I read was there are maybe 12 people in the entire world that know the exact location of this tree, but it's estimated to be 4,850 years old, and they dated it by collecting core samples. There are a whole bunch of trees in this forest that are big and old like this tree, and so this one particular tree may not be the oldest. In the 1960s, there was one that was over 5,000 years old that got cut down. And it was only after it was cut down did they realize how old it was. And the scientist that cut it down regretted it for the rest of his life. I think it followed him. I think personally he had issues with it, but also people were upset at him about it. But he didn't know, and that's pretty unlucky. So I found that really interesting. So to be fair, we'd have to say this is the oldest one that we know about. We don't know if it's actually the oldest one. There might be older ones in that forest.
You don't normally think about pines getting that old either. That's what I always find fascinating about it.
Yeah. And they don't look like regular pines either, though.
True.
They're not the pines that they're not the coastal pines that I'm used to in the Southeast, which I know they're pretty common, but I honestly think they're beautiful trees. Like really beautiful trees.
I dislike the coastal pines. No, I like the longleaf pines. I love those.
I like those too. I will say I'm hard pressed to find a tree that I don't like.
That's fair. I mean, I don't.
There's some I prefer over others, and some maybe I'm just so used to that I just really don't consider them that much. But it's difficult for me to find a tree I don't like. But I do really like coastal pines.
Yeah, that's the only tree that I'm not a big fan of. I don't necessarily dislike them, but if I have them on my property, I don't want them. I will replace them with something else. And I have no pines on my property, so I have a bunch of maples though.
Maples are good trees.
But longleaf pines, I do love. I think I have a couple of different evergreens that I really enjoy. I absolutely love cedar, all variety of cedar.
I do too.
Especially because the odor or smell. I love a good cedar.
It's a lovely scent. Yes, yes.
And then spruce and fir trees, I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really. It wasn't until I think I went to Yosemite that I put the ponderosa pine, or I became a little more familiar with the ponderosa pine. But that's a big tree, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I do like those. It's just the southern pine that I dislike. And I think I know why. So in general, anybody who has been in the Southeast knows how brittle they can be and how easy it is for them to topple because of the just soft wood, soft root system in general, depending on age. And so they create problems in storms, which is why I don't like them.
Oh, that's
it's
true.
Not really the tree itself that I dislike; it's the ramifications of having those trees.
That's a whole other thing.
But I identify the trees with that dislike, and so it's a thing for me.
You don't separate them.
But the trees themselves, they really are. As long as they're not on my property or causing a problem for me, I have no issues with them whatsoever.
Yep. I think I like the way they look though, but for the same reason, I wouldn't want to have them on my property as well.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I had, and again, I next time I need to make like when I was writing these in the notes yesterday, I knew why I was putting them here, and 24 hours later, have forgotten the context of why I put these here. So
I
don't know.
I would expect, so everything else was at least a fairly direct reference to what we talked about. I would expect this was just an interesting piece that was referenced in with some of the other reading and all.
Yeah, so that's definitely how it got here, but I felt like I came across a video that described an asteroid called 2025 TF. And I felt like there was a more specific reason than just that it being interesting and being somewhat related to these topics. And maybe by the time I'm done reading this, I'll remember it. But maybe it has to do with, maybe we referenced something about...
well, we did talk about how, or like, in general, how until we are spacefaring or encounter, alien,
yes,
the human empathy on Earth is just destined to be a problem.
Yeah, and I think that might be what it was in the thinking about how incredibly unprepared we are for contact. Because
just how unprepared we are for everything in space, even though we've done some exploration,
Yeah. So 2025 TF came very close to the Earth. It was 266 miles above the surface over Antarctica at the beginning of this month on October 1st. It's the second closest asteroid flyby ever recorded. And for a frame of reference, the International Space Station is 254 miles above Earth. So 12 miles difference. That's astronomically, that's really close. But we didn't know about it until after it passed the Earth. So if there is another civilization that's going to make contact with us, whether they be friendly or malicious, we are in no way prepared for them.
And I would say that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I can imagine us shooting nukes at them, and they like collect all of them, and like, thank you for the additional power. Something. It's primitive. We can cook one meal with the amount of power that you sent us. I feel like we're outmatched, and our only security is through obscurity.
Well, the technology leveraged that for a couple of decades before it really became problematic. So maybe on a galactic scale, that buys us.
Well, on a galactic timeline, we may have plenty of time. So as you were saying, I used my Apple. Well, we were lodging complaints about recent software, and when I was putting these notes together, so a lot of the times when I'm listening to our podcast, I am listening while I'm taking a walk or I'm driving. So it's not great for stuff. I have an idea, and I used to just let the ideas go and hope that I could remember them at a time that I could, put them down. So I recently created a reminders list, and I called it Podcast Follow-Up. And I have to say, I cannot wait for the new Siri to get here, assuming that it's good. It can't get here fast enough.
So this is actually interesting to me for a number of different reasons. I didn't mean to interrupt. It just seemed like a logical point to interject.
I think so.
I know the promise of Apple Intelligence is some contextual awareness and some other things that would be huge boosts if they work. So I don't want to shelve that at all. Like, that I think is actually an interesting thing to discuss. What I find fascinating about this is because I understand technologically why this is problematic currently, and it's because of a self-imposed limitation of the way you would set up the current assistant, because you have to set like default lists to use in different places, and Apple has this stupid idea of requiring you to set defaults and then using the defaults everywhere. So like if you use any third party app that integrates with reminders, you see this as well, where you have to choose a specific reminder list to be the list that integrates. You can't choose all reminders or show all reminders. It has to be this one particular one. And so if you're leveraging the voice assistant and you have a default reminders list or something set up that is not the one that you want to use, you encounter this problem consistently. So I understand that how you get to the point of this technologically, why it's there, but it's such a bullshit, arbitrary like restriction at this point that should have been gone easily a decade ago.
So I think maybe the restriction's gone because I did get it to work, but you have to. Well, I don't know if I have a default list or not. But I have a bunch of lists in the Reminders app. I have maybe a dozen lists, and I was able to get a reminder added to the list I wanted to. So I created this podcast follow-up reminders list. And the problem is that there's a specific incantation that you must chant to Siri to get her to do it correctly, or to get them to do it correctly. I didn't mean to gender her, them.
It's a her. The voice is,
I mean, it's a femme presenting voice.
Well, the original iteration was based on a specific woman who provided her voice, so it will always be a her from that regard. Just because
it wasn't Scarlett Johansson,
it was not. Just because you can choose other voices and everything else does not change the original implementation.
So, I did eventually get some of these into the right list, but I put in the list of things that I had to delete out of my personal reminders list, because that must be the default reminders list, because that's where things kept going. But what I put it in here, so it's no surprise to you. But the things that I deleted out of the personal reminders list were podcast, the podcast follow-up list, the podcast follow-up list, and the last thing was I just want it to be in the list, you goddamn motherfucker.
I have, for it being a relatively intangible thing, there are two products, I guess we'll say, that I have just unleashed a torrent of profanity at. And
Siri and Claude?
It was actually Siri and, hold on, it's probably going to activate something.
Yeah, mine just activated when I said Siri.
Actually, surprisingly, mine did not.
So apologies to everyone who's listening and their phone is activating.
But that one and the iteration of, it was, God, which one was it? It was on the back end, it was ChatGPT. I don't remember which front end I was using. I was not using the native front end, which was what launched me into a tirade against it. No, it actually was Claude that was responding in the back end.
Yeah, it was when you were doing development
It was,
work.
yep.
And because we talked about this, and I was just so amused by all the things.
Yep.
by Claude's response, he's like, "Oh, you're right. I'm sorry." It's just how apologetic it was, and it was just like, man, have you watched Scrubs?
Yes.
It kind of made me think of Ted from Scrubs. Claude is secretly wanting to kill you.
That's probably a very good comparison.
So,
in the time since, as models have improved, I have been much nicer to Claude.
Well, good. Well, it's tricky because I do feel like I know, like, I'm sitting here, I know it's not real, but I do feel maybe it's just because I'm a decent enough person, but I feel like I'm polite to, like, I use ChatGPT mostly, and I'm polite to it. I have never had a reason to be, well, it's not that I haven't had a reason to be polite to Siri. It's just that I've had so many reasons to be frustrated with Siri. Like, way more reasons. And it's interesting to like compare the two. And really all I want, like, I think what Apple was hoping they'd be able to develop with Apple Intelligence is great. And it's something that I would slowly leverage because I'm untrusting of it. Just because I just haven't seen it. It just, it hasn't come to fruition in any way, shape, or form in the way that they were describing. But if it really did that, like if I could trust it the way that I trust ChatGPT, because I can ask ChatGPT a thing, and I'm always cognizant of hallucinations and things, and I mean the other day I was asking a question about a Cisco device, and I was like, I had a show, I had a on a Cisco device I did show interface status. And like I looked at this naming, and I was like, I had some questions about the naming of a particular, because I don't work with routers that much. I had a question about the naming of an interface on some additional NIC, and I asked it, "Is this the correct naming convention for this?" And ChatGPT said no. It's like that's not a thing. And I said, well, what if this module is installed? And ChatGPT was like, oh, you're right, that is a thing. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it's named. And I was like, okay, thanks. So I am cognizant of that, but if I could use Siri the way that I use ChatGPT, but as a voice assistant instead of something, a chat box, that's kind of all I want at the moment. Maybe I'll want something later, but that's really all that I want at the moment, and be able to not have to say a exact correct phrasing of something to get it into, get a reminder into the reminders, the specific reminders list I want would be great, because I want it to be conversational.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. If we were to reach that point where I could trust it, I would love it. I would actually leverage it far more than I even attempt to do now. Because now, every time I try, there's a frustration that's either around the specific verbiage, like what you're having. So, just to add an additional anecdote, why I find this problematic, if you use HomeKit-enabled devices and you want to voice control things, you have to be very literal with the very specific naming convention that you've used for a switch or something else. And contextual awareness of what I'm meaning, like, turn on all office lights or something to that effect, should be close enough for me to be able to expect a voice assistant to understand, hey, there's a room called office. I should turn on the lights that are in the office. It's easy for us to grasp, but I do recognize the hurdles with trying to put that into a programming language, much less something where you can't truly explain some of the underlying things that are occurring. When you talk about, machine learning algorithms and other things that are a part of this mix, like you can explain it, the concept, but I've often heard many people say they couldn't explain a number of the steps between points A and Z. And so I am cognizant of, I'm asking a lot. I do recognize that it's difficult to get it right. But don't advertise that it's a voice assistant if you can't do that. Like there's a certain level of either it's an assistant or it's just a tool that responds to voice commands.
Well, right now it's the latter.
Right. And so pick your verbiage appropriately so that I know what to expect. Because there is not currently a voice assistant that I feel works well enough to be called a voice assistant, at least for the things that I use or would use. I've heard people have really good luck with certain other products that I will never use in my house for other reasons, but that again is indicative of the problem.
Yeah. See, I've held out on downloading Gemini for this because I thought, we thought Siri was coming a year ago. Like a year ago, we thought, oh, the new Siri is going to be here soon. They even, made a new UI, and I hope they haven't burned it, because it's kind of a cool UI. But
the new UI is much better than the old one, for sure.
Yeah. I'm disappointed that the old UI is on the watch still, but like, to your point, I think I'm the only one in my household that uses Siri to turn lights on and off, because, if you say, Siri, turn on the kitchen light, it's not going to happen. But if you say, Siri, turn on the kitchen, the kitchen light comes on, and it's just like, it's really unnatural. You would expect that. You would expect even like a better tool. We're not even an assistant. You would expect that a voice tool would be able to. There would be some logic to understand that. Oh, something called kitchen is a light switch, and when they say light, they're humans being superfluous.
Yeah, there are currently 3 use cases for me to verbally issue commands. One is timers, and we've talked about this before, where I do not have a good track record with that actually being successful.
Yeah, timers are terrible.
If I manually invoke the assistant, I have 100% success. But if not, and I rely on voice activation, it's a 50-50 crapshoot, which I find just ridiculous.
I don't even understand that.
I assume it has something to do with the actual pitch and timbre of my voice, because a lot of times it will activate on the phone across the room as opposed to the watch that I am speaking into.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to use terminology from the Apple retail. There's a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities.
Remind me.
And too many occurrences.
Remind me of Apple Retail. I've got a funny little extra thing that I can add to that when we get back to it.
Okay.
And then the other use case is I actually do use it to turn on one set of lights, which is the only set of lights that I have outside that are string lights around the pergola. And it's because I specifically named them string lights, and they're not attached to a room. I guess technically they're assigned to like outdoors. But because I can just say turn on string lights and it works, and I naturally would say string lights instead of string, it's the only one that is named in a way that actually makes sense for me to verbally issue the command. So I'll use it to turn those on and off, but that's it. I could, I suppose, go through and rename everything and try to make it natural, but that's just, it doesn't work when you're trying to delineate multiple different lights in a room.
I know, because I've had the same thought, because I think almost every room in my house has multiple light switches. Well, because it's an open concept house, so it makes sense that it would have multiple light switches. Yeah.
Well, and like for me, I just have multiple different types of lights in most rooms.
Yeah.
I technically have 3 separate lights because they're all hue bulbs in the stairwell, because it's 2 light fixtures, but it's 3 bulbs in the 2 fixtures. And so I would have to group them I do have them grouped as a scene, but I would have to remember the specific naming convention for the scene, which doesn't make sense for the naming convention for the light bulbs, which is just a whole nother level of why is this such a pain in the fucking ass?
One day, you'll be able to say, "Hey Siri." Oh, gosh, I apologize to everybody. I apologize.
I knew that was coming.
Now Siri has responded to me and said, "It's all good."
Hey dingus.
Yes, I know. I think Merlin Mann started that.
That was the first place I heard it, for sure.
Yeah, same. But now I hear it in several places. But hey dingus, I'm feeling, you could just be like, I'm feeling, and you could describe your mood, and then maybe the lights change. I don't know. It's some, I like, what is it? We underestimate what's going to happen we overestimate what will happen in the next 5 years, and we underestimate what's going to happen in 10 years. 10 years time from now, I don't even think this is a thing that we're going to be thinking of.
Well, eventually it has to be right, or the product just has to go away.
Right.
So.
Right. Right.
Speaking of frustrating products, so have you used iPhone mirroring much?
Yeah.
So I haven't used it a whole lot in general. I had set it up when the option was first available and used it for a couple of minutes, and I don't find it to be a normal part of my workflow. Predominantly because I don't have to deal with it. It's a very different environment when you're not working for a corporation. We'll just put it that way. And so, like either I'm on my phone or I'm on the Mac. I don't have to go back and forth between the two very much. And so today I was thinking, you know what? It would be nice to use iPhone mirroring to control the camera for a B-roll capture shot that I had in mind that would it would streamline the process so much. Like I can't even explain how beneficial it would be, which turned into an hour of trying to get it to work and then finally going back to my other available options to actually make it successful because iPhone mirroring was just a complete waste of time for my specific use case. And I will caveat this with my use case is very niche compared to the majority of the customer base. I acknowledge that it's not surprising, and we'll get into the details, but like I understand why my use case doesn't work. I really do. It just would have been nice to know that before I tried to get it to work because of how long I spent troubleshooting things. So, let's back up ever so slightly for the story. I have never connected my newest phone via iPhone mirroring. And so I launched iPhone mirroring and it tried to connect to my previous phone, which is not a big deal. I still have my previous phone. I could go get it, but it was in the opposite end of the house, whereas the current phone was sitting right beside me. And so I spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how do I make it speak to my current phone. And all of the options were talking about a pop-up that only shows up if it detects the two different devices. And apparently the phone sitting immediately adjacent to my laptop on the same Wi-Fi network, also connected or with Bluetooth turned on and everything else, also signed into the same iCloud account, still to this moment has never been detected for iPhone mirroring, which is a hugely problematic thing that there is absolutely no feedback or troubleshooting or anything else. Apple's insistence on not showing shit really pisses me off when there's a problem. So, I finally, after about 15 minutes, decided, fuck it, I'm going to go downstairs and grab my old phone because I still have it. I'll just install the app I need on it. It has the same particular quality recording capabilities that I need for my specific use case in the moment. It's not a big deal to default to it, so I went and got it. And then I spent 15 minutes troubleshooting why it kept wanting to disconnect for phone in use. And at that point, I just got fed up with the whole process, disabled everything, grabbed hardware workarounds to be able to successfully remotely monitor the camera app that I had running while it was on a slider to be able to capture a specific shot that took me all of 30 seconds to capture. Then I went back and looked at some additional details, and I realized that even if I had gotten it working, it wouldn't have been able to do what I wanted to do because you can't remotely control the camera via iPhone mirroring either, which I think is a bullshit limitation, but I do actually appreciate why. Or reasons that I come up with for why, because I can see
security, right?
Well, I can see a number of different things from both security or exploitative use where this could be problematic. So I do appreciate that limitation. But if I had known that prior to trying to get this all working, I could have spent 5 minutes with my hardware getting the shot I wanted and be done instead of the hour and a half that I ended up struggling with trying to get iPhone mirroring to work with my newest phone, where it still doesn't detect that fucker. So that's where I ended the day. I did get my shots because, I have a remote screen where I can mirror the display of my phone to, so I can see framing and everything else, no problem. And I could put the old phone on the slider and control the slider with the new phone. Like, I got it all to work with very little frustration when I quit trying to use anything Apple produced as a solution to try to make it work. And that was the frustrating part, because there's no, when you dig into documentation that does exist, you finally find some of these things. But the fact that it's not clear and concise up front, and the fact that troubleshooting is practically impossible because they don't provide any type of feedback that makes troubleshooting possible, it becomes ridiculously frustrating. That was a long rant, but that needed to happen.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty bonkers.
And I still have no clue why my newest phone won't show up as a selection for iPhone mirroring, because then I might actually use iPhone mirroring. But as it is right now, I'm going to write that feature off just like I write Siri off.
Yeah, so I've used iPhone mirror, so I haven't changed my iPhone since the feature was available, and but I gotta imagine, like, if you have multiple iPhones and you're signed into multiple with your same Apple ID, I mean, it should at least, there should be some something that prompts you, which iPhone are you trying to connect to. It shouldn't.
According to Apple's documentation, it does.
Oh, well.
In practice,
it doesn't.
I had both devices sitting beside me, and I confirmed they were all connected to the same Wi-Fi network name and were not set to auto-join any of the other network names that they might be able to connect to. And that matched what the Mac was signed into and connected to, which was also sitting on the same desk. And it only saw the old phone, and still only sees the old phone. And it only saw the old phone when the Mac and the new phone were in a completely opposite end of the house. So Bluetooth proximity, even though they talk about it in the documentation, that's a lie. Plain and simple. There is no way it is leveraging Bluetooth connectivity and can't see the new phone. Or there's a bug that is specific to the iPhone 17 Pro. Hands down. Like, there's just no...
Well, I wouldn't discount
no,
that.
No, I wouldn't either. But it's like, that's the level of troubleshooting that I can do, because nothing shows up in the UI. I can't even see the selection unless it detects multiple phones. So I can't even tell you that the selection might even show up or exist, because for me it doesn't, even though the documentation says it will if it detects multiple devices.
Yeah, so I think the lack of status, like, I understand why there's a lack of status, but it's not okay that you can't dig into something to get a lot more status. I mean, I know they don't want.
Yeah, so
they don't want you to see a window that looks like top.
It's great to have this frictionless user experience when it works.
Right.
And I really do appreciate it. It's the reason I still choose to use macOS over something else.
Yes.
The frustrating part is when it doesn't work the way you expect it to, and you can't get information.
Yes.
And that's, like, if nothing else, provide an advanced button or a debug button or a specific application that only advanced users are going to know about, to at least look at the fucking logs, like something that will point to an issue or a troubleshooting step or something, because the documentation doesn't even indicate you could have a problem where it doesn't detect a device. It's literally just, it will show up when multiple devices are detected. Period. No other information. No troubleshooting steps. Nothing to point you in any direction. And that's the problem.
It should have everything. It should have documentation that There should be documentation that describes what it should be doing, and there should be a way to look at, when it's not when you don't have that seamless experience. There should be a way to look into it, and that should be documented as well.
At a bare minimum, even if you don't provide a tool within the OS, the documentation should say, hey, you know what? If you have a newer device and you're having problems getting it detected, click here and read some additional information.
Yeah.
I don't even have that complex of an app, and I have more documentation than Apple provides over this shit like this. It's just, this is where it's frustrating.
Yeah. Hubris and revenue. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. You gotta cuss more. I cussed too much this episode.
Well,
we gotta maintain that explicit rating.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
No, and I realized when we talk about assistance and software that doesn't work the way I want it to, that seems to be a pet peeve. It really does. It draws out more of the profanity than other things.
I think because the promise is there have been so many empty promises for decades, and we're now at a place where compute is so powerful. It is powerful enough that the promise doesn't need to be the promise isn't empty anymore.
Well, so I behaviorally, it's because I've been so enmeshed in the world of technology for so long that I don't have a problem lashing out on those things, where I would be more polite on other things. Yeah, like it's.
You can see the problem. You can see the problem.
Well,
you know how it.
It's because I can see how we ended up here, and how long it's taken to resolve core friction points. That's just problematic. It'd be one thing if things iterated at a pace where it resolved some of the long-standing friction points over time, and then you kind of forgive, like pace of progress and all that kind of stuff. The fact that we have the same issues from day one today, that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, there's a balance to be struck. Like I think that if you just let engineers engineer, sometimes nothing will get released. Or that's the concern, is that it's not perfect enough to be released, and so nothing gets released. But when you have business being business, it's like sometimes good enough isn't actually good enough, and so there's a balance that needs to be struck between those two.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel like we've hit the right balance.
No, we certainly haven't.
With certain products and features. Yes. Certainly some others have, because I don't want to make it completely Apple bashing. They've done some good stuff. They've also done some bad stuff. That's just kind of the nature of business.
HomePod.
Yeah. But this one area is so specifically problematic. And actually, let's rephrase these two areas. One, we have steadily marched further and further along the path of just don't show that there's a problem, or don't indicate there's a problem, and like softly try this other stuff in the background or do other things in the name of the experience, which again, I appreciate the experience, but when you eliminate my ability to fix a problem that does come up because you don't provide any level of guidance or assistance for troubleshooting, that's a problem. And two, the fact that you have a voice assistant that has the same problems that it had when it launched. Like those are the two big core failures. Eventually, one of them will get fixed, and it'll probably be the voice assistant.
Yeah,